Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another edition of Living World of Darkness, Rage Across New York. This scene is between Vale Bakass and Sherrod Morningkill, Beta of the Sept. Vale had sent Morningkill a very friendly letter expressing an interest in meeting up with him and talking to him about several things of import to him, like kinfolk relations and things of this matter. And Morningkill replied favorably and told Vale that he had to meet with him in his office. So Vale took the rest of the afternoon off and has headed out to Morningkill's office.
Why are you laughing such a lot? Morningkill's office is in the National History Museum, as we all know. You'll be greeted by one of the kinfolk leading you in, like knocking on the door, like your appointment is here, Mr. Morningkill. La-di-da-di-da. The door will open. Morningkill will stand up from behind his desk, walk over to the door, offer his hand to Vale. Mr. Bakass.
He'll take it and shake it firmly.
Pleasure to see you. Please do enter. Would you like anything to drink?
Oh yes, actually, a glass of water would be fine. Thank you.
Excellent. And he'll guide you to like a chair or something, and get you a glass of water with like the bottle on the table next to it. And he'll sit down behind his desk again, putting his fingers together.
He noticed that Vale is wearing a very nice suit, by the way. He was working, so he's dressed very nicely.
He'll sit down, put his fingers together. I do believe there were matters you wished to speak to me about.
Yes, and if you want, I can be brief and skip over the pleasantries.
If you so wish.
I know you're aware of my situation and what I came from, and I know that you're aware of my intentions in the nation and the things that I'm trying to achieve and the goals that I have in mind to alleviate some of the tensions and disparities between kinfolk and Garu. And I won't lie, you are an esteemed man and in a position to help me with that greatly. So I was wondering, one, if there was anything that I could help you with, and if you could help advise me on this matter and what to do. I have a specific idea in mind that I'd like to see come to fruition, but there are also other things that could happen that I may not be aware of. That's why I wanted to come to you.
Well, let us see. First of all, what is the thing you completely wish to achieve? What is your end goal?
My end goal is that the gulf in treatment between the kinfolk is lessened. I understand that this sept and many others are very egalitarian, and that kinfolk relations are considered a high concern and priority, but there are septs where they are being abused, and there are septs where they are being neglected and even killed, and there is no one to help them, and there's no one to step in and to make sure that septs are not abusing their kinfolk. And that's something that I think could be taken to task. And for instance, let's say if you were talking about the sept of the Western Shore, and I asked this sept to intervene and help me to make sure that the kinfolk there were being treated well. One of the things that would be brought back to me, as it was before, is that's all but declaring war on another sept, which is understandable as to why that is undesirable. But if the kin of a sept are being mistreated or maligned, is that not worth maybe not going to war over, but standing up for? We're supposed to stand up and protect the creatures and the beings of Gaia. In the litany itself, it says, respect all those beneath thee, all are of Gaia. How are we respecting the kinfolk if we know that they're being harmed and hurt and we allow it to happen? Is that not a stain on our hands? He looks less accusatory and as though he's upset at Morningkill himself, and more as though he's just passionate about this subject.
Morningkill will think for a moment. It is true. Many Septs abuse their kinfolk. Many Septs and many Garou even feel that they are higher than their kin, which, forgive me for saying, is quite easy to feel. And I believe you know this, Mr. Bacchus.
Mm-hmm.
The issue that we currently face is that our current generation of Garou, and I believe even the last 10, perhaps, generations,
Mm-hmm.
have grown fond of power. The litany states that, yes, you have to respect all those beneath you. However, in reality, this tenet is not very enforced.
I can think of a simple way to begin to work with the younger generation and with what we have now to begin to alleviate that. But it requires something being acknowledged one place and accepted one place to spread to other Septs. There are many positions within the nation. There's the beta, yourself, you're the beta. There's the alpha of a Sept. Den mothers and truth catchers and warders. And all of those positions are accepted and respected. They come with a measure of clout, and people listen to those that are in that position. One thing that I thought is that if we could begin instituting a position of a liaison for the kinfolk, a kinfolk who's chosen by the Sept to represent the kinfolk and to make sure that, for instance, new cubs coming in are taught proper Garou kinfolk relations, and the kinfolk who are in the Sept have someone to listen to them, make sure that their grievances are being met, as well as if there comes a problem with a kinfolk in the Sept, there's someone to help represent them. You know what I mean? Then if that can be started and it can spread to other Septs, and then those kinfolk liaison could form a coalition and could take it upon themselves and task it upon themselves to make sure that other Septs are as well treating their kinfolk well, then it may not have to come to war. Then it could stay to policies. Then it could stay to the mightier Septs, like this one, and the other great Septs of the nation, if they could be brought in on maybe even a treaty level to agree that this is an accepted position and something that the kinfolk can look to find solace, if you will, and a shelter, then if we can do that right now, tomorrow, next week, even next month, we may not see the results to it. And it may be something that's very, very slow in the uptake. It might even take years for it to take momentum. But I think it would serve both in the short term to begin to give kinfolk a platform and a venue, but it would also roll into a codified way and a solid way that kinfolk feel as though they have that available to them, that option. that there's someone in the sept who's there to listen to them. And I'd like to bring that to this sept. I'd like to advent it, and I'd like to see that position start in this sept. It would be new. It would be modern. Yes, it would. But traditions all started somewhere.
It would be very, I wouldn't say strange. However, teaching proper Garu and kinfolk relationship is usually the duties of the then parent. Now, I understand that these relationships may be better fought by a kin and a Garu.
Mm-hmm.
However, yes, teaching the younger generations of Garu, this is a good idea. I will certainly give you that. However, the mistreatment and abusement from various kin come not from the younger Garu.
No. And that's why I think it needs to be called to task as well. You see, that's why I think it needs to be a position and a person, so that there's something to be held accountable to. It needs to be somebody who's familiar in the laws of the Garu and in the old ways. I won't lie, Gerard. I think that I'm honestly probably one of the best choices for that position in this sept. I am familiar with the laws of the Garu. I was raised in a sept. I know our ways. I've
also recently heard Mr. Carson. Of course, you may call on me if I am saying anything wrong. However, I've heard various rumors that you yourself have made quite a couple of scenes in this sept already.
You wouldn't be wrong.
I believe there's been an accident with the water. Perhaps, was I misinformed of this?
With the water? No. Well, no. You have to. Let me explain, if I may.
Of course.
Travis and I are very good friends. I would say he's one of my best friends. And the warder and I believe that the altercation you're thinking of happened before he was the warder. But he knows that I have a temper. It's something I'm working on actively. I spoke to Alan Stewart to help me to calm myself, but admittedly, the experiences that I went through as a youth have left very deep scars on my heart, and the ability to perpetuate the abuse that I was subjected to is not something that is lost to me. I could, if I don't control it, become very, very angry. It's what I was raised to. And there are times when I have lost my head and when I have lost my temper. And Travis has been there to pull me back and to make sure that I didn't either get myself into more trouble than was due or harm someone. I think Travis sometimes worries about. Someone said to me recently that they were concerned that Travis was afraid of me, and I said that there is literally no possible way Travis is afraid of me. That is not the case. But I do believe that Travis is concerned for my actions when I become angry. And I will acknowledge that when I become angry, You are a Philodox, no?
I am.
Can you do me a favor? And it's going to sound very strange, but just bear with me.
He raises an eyebrow.
I am kinfolk, right?
Yes.
You're sure of it. Basically, he's asking him to use sentence true form. And it's up to you whether he is or isn't. That's fucking up to you.
He doesn't even need to. He'll just. Yes.
Oh, good. There have been many people who have been concerned that I have not experienced my first change, and am in fact a Garu because of how angry I become.
I do have to address this matter, Miss because kinfolk, no matter how angry they are not Garu. And so in the eyes of a majority of the Garu nation, they are not equal because they are not the same. I'm
Can I
sorry if
bluntly-
this strikes a nerve with you, but this is the truth.
And I'm going to tell you a very ugly truth that we kinfolk hear when we hear that. And I'm going to speak bluntly. And it's not my opinion, mind
Of
you.
course, please do share.
The Skinner was just a kinfolk. And Garu forget that. And the problem is that when kinfolk are subjected to what we are, me, I'm not that way. I'd never become Garu. I'm happy with what I am. And if I wanted to prove myself to the Garu and that I were an equal, I wouldn't become one. That only punctuates that I'm not equal. I wouldn't take that road. What he did is monstrous. But he was just a kinfolk. And unless he was killing Metis, which to my knowledge he wasn't, he was killing a tableau of people. That means he had to kill and skin. No, let me rephrase that. He had to skin a living Garu in their Krynos form as a human. And whenever kinfolk, there are kinfolk that when they hear people say that, when they hear people say, you're just a kinfolk, you're just, you'll never be equal. There are still some that say, Sam Haight was just a kinfolk. And it builds that little seed in their heart. And they begin to see Garu not as our protectors and as those that we should work with and our family, but as those that need to be put into their place and need to be reminded that everyone has weaknesses and we know them. We know everything. We know your weaknesses, your secrets, where your places of power are. With but one solid movement, the kinfolk could send the Garu nation toppling to the ground by letting them know where the Karens are, by letting them know exactly how to strike, where to strike. But no Garu thinks of that. I would never do such a thing. Never. This is my family. This is my home. I'd end myself first, and I don't have that much hate in my heart. I would rather correct the nation and I'd rather foster growth and goodwill, and I would rather see a future where we live together in harmony. But there are kinfolk that aren't like me. There are kinfolk who would ally with the Magi and with the leeches. And there are kinfolk who would ally with those that wouldn't subjugate them as breeding stock. And all it would take is one kinfolk saying, there's the Sept of the Greens, Karen. There's their place of power. And then doing it to all of the other septs. Just one. But I don't want to see that. And I don't want that to be between us. I want there to be a world where we respect each other. And where kinfolk have a voice to feel that they're listened to in the sept. And for there to be no reason for kinfolk to feel that they need to do that. So you may be physically stronger, Garu. I'll admit that. But if the kinfolk wanted to, the nation would have ended so long ago. All the kinfolk have to do is decide that we're no longer going to help, that we'll no longer breed, that we'll no longer serve, that will go to those that also have power. How long is it going to be before a kinfolk decides that that's the path they're going to take? How long? I don't know. But are you willing to wait to see? He actually looked like he actually asked them.
Those are dangerous words, Mr. Bacchus.
They are. I've spoken more. I've spoken worse. And they need to be spoken. Because Garou
they could almost be seen as a threat.
To you? Please, no. I'm not threatening you.
That's why I say almost.
If I wanted to threaten you, that wouldn't be how I threaten you.
Interesting.
I realize that you're the kind of man that can be spoken to bluntly. You're the kind of man who would hear my words and realize that they're not coming from internal motivation. They're simply pointing out what Garou forget. But you know they're true. Maybe you've never even seen a kinfolk speak this before.
It is certainly interesting.
I'll be blunt. What do you prefer to be called? Gerard, Mr. Morningkill?
Mr. Morningkill will do just fine.
I'll be blunt, Mr. Morningkill. I'd like to see this position come to fruition, and I'd like to see it established in the Sept. And I think the Sept of the Green is the best Sept to begin it in. I think that this Sept is a good place to test it, to see what can be done with it, what utility it has. And I'd like permission to try to form it. You are the bait of the Sept. I know you'd need Mother Larissa's permission, perhaps the others as well, the other elders. I'm not even saying I necessarily have to hold it. If you want to hold some sort of a challenge, or if there's an election or something that you'd like to hold to see the position filled, I'm more than happy to see that happen. But it is something that I would like to see happen.
Here's what I'd like you to do, Mr. Bacchus.
Of course, yes.
Bring this idea up with some of the other kinfolk. Speak to them. Get their opinion. If need be, get perhaps one of the den parents, or perhaps even the Wormfoe. I believe Mr. Stewart has been quite helpful to your efforts.
Mm-hmm.
Sit together, speak, discuss this idea, and then you and one of the other kin come back to me. Or Mother Larissa.
I can tell you I've already spoken to the other kinfolk about it. It was received fairly positively. But I can do it again.
Please do.
What is it specifically you wish for me to talk to them about, to see if they still believe it's a good idea?
Do not get me wrong, I believe this is a good idea. I believe having somebody that can teach the younger Garou from a kinfolk point of view lessons from both if that young Garou grew up as kin before, or if it was perhaps even a lost cub or an outsider. I believe this is a good idea. However, there are various kin in this Sept. that such a position could fall to.
The position does also come with it, as I pointed out, for instance, the connotation that one would, like what happened with me, that person would have to be there for that, to make sure that the laws were seen fairly and that the kinfolk wasn't being judged harshly. Just basically whatever involves kinfolk in the sept, that would be the person's responsibility.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Because do you think you were judged too harshly?
I don't think I was judged too harshly. I believe the circumstances were not optimal. I don't believe that I believe you could have done better.
Please share.
I wasn't given really a chance to defend myself. And you asked me briefly if I agreed with what had been leveled against me, but the problem is that there was more than one thing being brought against me. Two of those things I would have wholly agreed to. I did threaten the veil. I didn't breach it, but I did threaten it. I will admit. Twice. But my reason for hitting Dragos, I don't believe I was judged fairly on. And I don't believe that I should have been punished for it. The thing that happened between he and I, actually, had there been someone in the position I'm speaking of, would have resolved much more easily. You see, Mr. Morningkill, the problem is right before I had struck Dragos, the reason that I had struck him was because he, Katori, and Smiles in the night had been communicating. I don't understand the communication between the Lupus. I know to Garu it makes as much plain and clear sense as English does, but to me, I'm lost on it. All I hear is snarling and barks and whines, tail postures. I'm trying very hard to learn, but it takes a long time. So, right before the confrontation between Dragos and Xavier, Smiles, Katori, and Dragos had been almost aggressively kind of speaking to each other, and it set me on edge. I was already very, very nervous, and they knew that. I was so nervous that when Dragos touched me, I became ill to my stomach. Xavier is very close to me. He's like a brother. And Xavier wasn't threatening Dragos. There had been no formal challenge laid. There had been nothing. Yes, there was a challenge of dominance. But Xavier's like a brother to me. If, for instance, Smiles in the Night had decided to step in, and if Xavier had been displaying dominance, and akin to that, I've seen where Garu will do that, where they'll basically aid each other in dominance. But beyond that, no formal challenge had been laid whatsoever. And I struck him because he had threatened my best friend. I don't see how that was worthy of punishment. I guess if you want to say that it was because I interrupted a challenge, well, I hadn't. Not one that was formal. If it were because I struck a Garu, I don't see how I should be punished for that. I struck a Garu. If you say that I should be punished for that, then that's perpetuating the culture that Garu are above kinfolk and kinfolk are beneath. People strike each other in the sept all the time. To my knowledge, I believe Anna did it last night with Xavier. If she wasn't punished.
No, I do see some reasoning behind this, Mr. Bacchus. However, there are a few things I'd like to point out, if I may.
Sure, go ahead. Oh, please, of course, go.
If you were feeling ill, nervous, perhaps even, why not simply leave?
I was planning on it. Xavier and I were going to leave soon, but beyond that, we were just having a casual conversation. This wasn't a tribune of some sort. It wasn't we were just talking.
Then you
I
could
had
have
actually come to
simply,
the septic part.
perhaps you could have simply waited just a few bits away for Mr. Claude by the Abyss to arrive.
We had come together. I was hoping to busy myself with something, or maybe possibly find somebody to spar with. Xavier doesn't like to spar with me, and I understand that. But the circumstances as to me being at the Sept, feeling ill at ease. I'm sorry for coming to the Sept when I was ill at ease, but I was looking for a reason to alleviate.
I see. Then the question of dominance. I would like to point out one thing, and one thing directly.
Please tell me.
The Lupus do not think as the Homid.
Mm-hmm.
For them, a direct stare in the eye is a formal challenge.
Mm-hmm.
As such, a challenge was interrupted.
I meant in the sense of a formal challenge laid out with the Master of Challenge. One that is considered a challenge.
The Master of Challenge does not need to be present to every single challenge laid out. In fact, how do I put this correctly? Garou can challenge Garou. Very simple. That doesn't, as long as there's another set of eyes observing them, such a challenge can be considered formal. If the Master of Challenges is called upon, it is called upon to determine whether or not the challenge is actually fair. The Master of Challenges is free to give challenges as rank, to alleviate conflicts, to set aside rivalries. The Master of Challenges is not necessarily required for making a challenge, if you understand what I'm saying.
Now here's the next question. In a challenge of dominance, is one not allowed to defend another? Was I not considered to be challenging Dragos for dominance?
Did you stare him in the eyes, directly, looking down on him?
I challenged him as a man would. If he can challenge Xavier as a Lupus would, I challenged him as a man would. At that point, I was claiming dominance over him.
As I say before,
Was it
Lupus
why?
mind is different than the Homid mind.
Well, if one has to be acknowledged, I don't see where the other doesn't. I think most people consider it a challenge when a man strikes you. So at that point...
However, at that point, the other challenge was already taking place.
The whole situation was very complicated.
I understand. However, you need to understand as well, Mr. Bacchus. The situation, as it were, was a challenge, a formal one, of dominance. If you say striking Dragos was also a challenge of dominance, that happened during the other challenge, effectively disrupting it.
He's listening very closely to him. I understand you. And I understand where you're coming from. And I understand your judgment. What I believe went wrong is that during the mediation of it and in the fallout, that wasn't made clear enough. And I wasn't given enough of an opportunity to explain myself. And that seems to happen a lot with kinfolk. which is the other reason I believe that this position needs to be in the SEP.
I have
So that when kinfolk are brought to judgment, there is somebody to stand beside them and help them and make sure that the judgment is fair.
There have been a lot of cases recently where Garu very quickly jumped to conclusions without looking beyond what's actually there.
And that
Not
is something
just with kinfolk, but also with other Garu.
I can agree to that. I would say that I'd help try to alleviate that as well, but I can only do it from a outside perspective. I don't quite have time. If you requested it, I would, of course, in service to the SEP. But I'm more concerned right now with my immediate goal of seeing this position laid out and fomented.
And realized. I do understand this. Please.
And not only for this SEP. So, sorry.
No. Go right ahead, Mr. Bacchus. My apologies.
It's the important thing that I think has to be punctuated is that it's not just for this SEP. It's so that it can be formed and brought to other SEPs, so that other SEPs can have the position. Other SEPs that aren't quite so egalitarian as ours, or who aren't quite as... You have the ear of the king, Mr. Morningkill. You have the ability to see a position like that come to fruition and come to finality.
Installing this position in different SEPs is difficult. For one reason only, that different SEPs are ruled by different tribes. I do not believe this will be much of a problem with, for example, Bonar or Children of Gaia SEPs. However, I wish you to take a look at Get a Fenris or Wendigo SEPs.
I'm up for the challenge. It would be difficult, but I like my mind to be preoccupied. I like to challenge myself constantly. When I'm not doing something, when I'm not busy or being tested, I get very agitated, and I don't like it. I'm one of those people that has to strive forward.
This is not simply a challenge, Mr. Bacchus. This will be a lifetime goal.
This is a revolution, Mr. Morningkill.
If you wish for a revolution, Mr. Bacchus, there's only one man you need to overthrow.
Who's that? Myself?
Oh, no. The one at the top.
You mean... I've considered that.
You have?
Not in any way that would be considered treasonous. But I have considered that there are things within the nation that are being greatly neglected and ignored. And if they can't be seen to or handled, and if the nation is going to suffer for it, especially in a time where it is so important that we focus on the battle against the worm and not ourselves, as we've been left to do right now, the litany fully and completely supports the idea that a leader may be challenged during time of peace. Your father was a great man. He was a fantastic leader. He was glorious in his day, as was his father before him.
I ask you to not mention this.
He'll tilt his head. As in he wants him to shut up, or he's going to say something.
It's like he was saying, like, don't talk about my father.
He's going to kind of tilt his head and say, he said, As in change the subject, or as in don't directly address him? I'm going
I
to do
have
something.
no love for my father, Mr. Bacchus. None at all.
Oh my God, Max.
Oops. Did I just say boo-boo?
The slight smile he sees on Vale's face could launch a fleet.
Mm-hmm.
He just has the most beautiful, elegant smile on his face right now. Like, oh, you just made my Christmas.
I know.
And he'll say, oh, is that so?
Yes. Perhaps one might inquire your wife about this.
I think I will.
Pleasant.
As I said, people underestimate kinfolk and what they can do.
Trust me, Mr. Bacchus. I know very well what a kinfolk can do. Very well.
Don't hit on Morning Kill. Don't hit on Morning Kill. Don't hit on him. This character's bisexual. I'll smile. I think our meeting has come to a good place today. You've given me a task. I've given you things to think over. I'll see to it and return to you, Mr. Morningkill.
Excellent.
Tell me, how is your cousin doing?
I do believe he's in the sept.
I've always wanted to meet him. Maybe I should get around to doing that. He's an interesting man. He comes from an interesting place. I wonder what his opinion on kinfolk relations are. Huh. He'll kind of bite his lip. Well, I won't take up any more of your time. I'll smile at him. Offer in hand. Unless there's anything, of course, you have to say to me, but you seem as though you're...
No. He'll stand up. Gotta take the hand and shake it.
He'll nod. It was wonderful meeting with you. I look forward to speaking to you again. I'm gonna go do those things you told me to do.
Of course.
And Gerard, remember, it wasn't a threat. I'm actually going to roll. Hold on. I'm going to roll his charisma, like expression, like some shit. A, he called him Gerard, and he's trying to get him comfortable with it. B, he's genuinely trying to put across that it wasn't a threat, but he needs to consider that Vale can be threatening. He's not threatening him, but it's kind of a. Just keep it in mind.
Yeah.
What should I roll, by the way, for that?
Charisma. Either expression or leadership.
Damn. Can I use? Oh fuck. Can I use empathy? He's putting emphasis on it.
Empathy would more. Empathy would more be like trying to get a tune in with his own emotions. You're trying to get a point across, which is a different thing than empathy. That falls more under leadership and expression.
Okay. I just don't. I don't have expression on my sheet. Oddly, I thought I had it.
Weird.
I know I've had it before. What the fuck? Hold on a second. I'm just gonna have to roll it straight then.
All right.
Although he should have leadership. I'm going to have to buy that next round. Because he really should have leadership.
Golden bones.
Okay. Golden bones. I get to have my pure breed, so that's why I'm not freaking out too bad.
You're good. You're good. You're good.
Well, I got 2 successes, so that's not bad.
Gotta roll something in return for him.
Again, he's not trying to like intimidate him or anything like that. He's just
I
more
know.
kind of,
I know. Oh boy.
I don't know what that was, but that was a lot of ones.
That is a lot of ones. What? Okay. He'll,
Oh, he has one. Oh, no.
Yeah, he got one. He'll simply put his hands together and say, "Understandable, Mr. Bacchus."
And with that, he will leave.
And once the door closed behind him, Winterkill once again sit down, grab the whiskey under his desk, drink it, and say, kinfolk.
And I think with that, we can end our scene, correct? Bye-bye, everybody.